So I'm working on my friend's bike, FLT 84, and trying to get it started. Before I can get it started, I had to get this starter system working. On the older bikes, they were in multiple pieces. In the back is the motor, reduced gearing. This is your pinion gear. It spins this guy. There's a little fork, kind of looks like this. This guy's worn out pretty bad, so I figured I'd change it while I have it all apart. You heard earlier, you kept hearing it spin. Now, pinion gear spins one way, so when the engine's spinning and starts going faster than pinion gear, it won't bust anything. It's supposed to have a clutch in it. Not supposed to spin this way. You see I'm holding it, and this guy's turning. It takes a lot of force, but it is moving. Ain't supposed to do that. So every time this thing engaged, the engine just kept, the starter just kept spinning. You just hear that zing, zing, right? So to get that out, you got to screw up here, that you got to take out. It's a set screw. Take that out. It's kind of on an angle. Allen wrench. Make sure you get it right. Little pin that's got to come out here. That pin goes right through this piece. And what this guy does is always put pressure on the inside. On the other side, where you get your solenoid, there's a spring that goes in here. That spring pushes on this and forces this guy in all the time. When you engage and you put power to here and you hit your starter, what happens is this guy pushes it, pulls in. I don't know if you can see that, but he actually pulls in. When he pulls in, it contacts these two pieces and takes the pressure off the spring because it all moves in together. When that happens, it pulls in, this guy pushes out because it's pivoting, right? Pushes out like that, which engages this, and this all comes out. There is some, threads in here, and this guy's going to spin out anyway, but it helps it push this out, keeps it out. When you let it go, the spring helps it pop back in. Not like, I'd say just like new motors, starter motors, but new starter motors, this is all built into the motor. You got your solenoid on the motor, you got your pinion gear on the motor. It doesn't need any of this, but on these older bikes, it's multiple pieces. What I had to do, figure out what the problem was, this was fairly easy. Shouldn't turn, right? And you see how easy that turns? It's got a clutch in here, it ain't supposed to turn. Easy to find that. This guy was totally fried, burnt, smoking. Had to replace this. This piece here, just kind of worn out. Don't know if you can see that. But it's a real flat spot here, flat spot in this side. Getting pretty close to 50% worn through. My biggest fear is it warns through, one of these break off, grinds up in here, and you got a bigger mess. So, part gone. I didn't show you a video, but I had to take this off. There's plenty of videos how to take your primary cover off. Drain the oil, pull it off. Other thing I had to do, take this side of the exhaust off just to get to this bolt here. Because it's on an angle and the exhaust is right on top of it. So I had to take that out. I got a video of it sounding, putting all together, but I wanted to show you guys. This piece here comes out. You take this piece off, take this pin out. You can actually, at that point, there's enough slop to lift this up, pull it out, and it works out pretty good. Show you real quick. Now, I put Teflon tape on here to keep it from seizing. Some of the problems I had with this bike is old bike, a lot of this stuff is seizing into the aluminum. The because didn't put anti-seize on it. But anti-seize, Teflon tape, pop that in there. This little pin comes out. What I'm doing is just walking it up to get it out to the point to where kind of just gotta keep walking it up. Take the pin out. Once you get the pin out, you can take this guy, lift him up, pull it back. He comes out in one piece. Right? This is where that fork goes in. Why it wears on this side, because it rubs against these pieces here. So, goes in here, pushes it in and out. You want to make sure that moves free. You notice I can't turn this where it's supposed to be. Turns this way, slightly tight, can't turn this. This guy is a reverse thread. So if you do the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it ain't going to work because you're going to tighten it. It's a reverse thread, so you got to do the opposite. Righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. So, those things. Here you can see the gears, and I don't know if you can see that in there, but there's gears cut in, the threads, and they're on an angle, which when this guy spins, pushes it out because of the angle it is. And this should move nice and free. I put some lube in here, just so when it all starts up, it's not dry. This goes back into the gears in the back. This goes back into the spot where it goes in that cavity. Pop this back in right here. Be careful. If you push this in too far and you got the battery connected, it is going to try and start because you're going to connect those pins together. Make sure it goes all the way down. This guy, give me a second. I'm going to stop, put some Teflon tape on it. Okay, back. Teflon tape. Motorcycles, Teflon tape, little lithium grease, blue Loctite, your best friends. At least in my opinion. It's just the way I do it. Other people do it different ways. It's just the way I was taught in the old days. Yeah, drop it. Taught in the old days how to do it. The way I still do it. Works for me. Might not work for you. It's just the way I do it. I'm just a garage mechanic here. I've been doing this for years. Not that hard, but you do got to take it all apart. Now, I will be talking everything down a little bit later. Just want to get these pieces to you, show you how to do this. I was not able to find this bike with, working on this piece on YouTube. It's probably out there, but I couldn't find it. Not this model. I can see the ones with the solenoids over here, different mechanism, works basically the same, but on this bike, solenoids behind here with the fork here, pops this guy in and out. Make sure when you put it all back together, you lock it back in place. It fits in the gear back there. It's a reducing gear, and it fits into it. So tests that you want to make, you can disconnect the battery, the starter cable off the solenoid, which this is where your switch is going to go to. The longer bolt on this, the longer one, is where your battery cable and your power that goes to the rest of the bike comes over here to power this guy up. This is a 30 amp breaker. This right here, hopefully you guys can see it in the picture. Let me take a look. Kind of. It's on the edge. There's a relay right here, and this is your starter relay. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit. Sorry about the fuzziness. Starter relay. This guy was bad. It was cracked. Water was getting in. I replaced it. This guy here was bad. It was sticking. You had to hit it every once in a while to get it to unstick. Oh, so I got a temporary green wire. I'm going to replace that later with a black wire. I checked the voltage. It goes directly from here to this guy right here on the other side of the engine, and it goes right to the battery. I was getting over a 1 volt drop between here and here out of a 1.5 piece of wire that they have in there. It's a black wire. It's real thin. I'm replacing with a 10 gauge. There's probably a 14 gauge on there, and I was getting a 1 volt to 1.5 volt drop here, and that guy powers this guy, which in turn puts voltage here. You don't get a good voltage here, this guy's not going to engage right. It's not going to pull the magnet and solenoid ain't going to pull the pin back to engage it right, and you're going to have issues. So by replacing the wire here on these old bikes, I got rid of that 1 volt drop. So I got 12.5 volts, a little bit more down on this side, 12.5 volts here instead of having 11 volts that I was getting. Then I was getting the voltage, a little drop here and a little there. Cleaned it all up, replaced these guys, getting good voltage on this guy. So next thing I got to do is I got to put all this together. The other thing, Teflon tape, I put it on the drain plug. The drain plug in this guy was so seized, I couldn't get it out. I took it to my local machine shop. Those guys, showed me a little trick. They welded a bolt onto the end of it, and they were able to just twist it out, right? And I should have thought of that. Weld the bolt on, pull it out. Old school, you don't think of everything. But drain plug in this guy was seized in there because it was tight. Steel to aluminum, steel to the casing, right? And seized in there, couldn't get it out no matter how hard I tried. All it was doing was just stripping apart where the Allen head goes. I tried everything, couldn't get it out. These guys just welded to it, pulled it right out, put a new plug in. So I put Teflon tape, on my oil drain plugs, or anti-seize, one of the two. Use the Teflon tape, helps from leaks. So these guys don't have the rubber O-ring seals. So if you don't get them in there really tight or put some Teflon tape in there, they seem to leak. So that's what I do. This is my way of doing things. I'm going to be putting this all back together, putting in the fluid, oil into it, get it all back, and then I got to start working on the carburetor. When I get to that point, I'll do another video on the carburetor. I will talk all these to spec in the order that it says in the book. I don't like over talking. I don't like under torque. I like to do it, you know, torque specs. Bought myself a really good set of torque wrenches. I'll torque this all down to the specs. You can look it up. I'll do a little video and tell you what the torque on these are. They're usually inch-pounds. I just don't have it right down and look in the book, but kind of standard. And I'll put it all back together, get ready to work on the carburetor. So, that's what I got. Bad part fried, right? Low voltage going to it. Smoky stuck, burnt, crisp. Took it apart. It's all fried inside. You ever get one of these, and they turn by hand. They'll always turn this way. This is a little free. The clutch inside's bad, right? But this guy, I can turn it. Shouldn't do that. I can't turn this guy, and I barely, with my finger, you know, there's resistance in there, and that's the way it should be. This guy, look at that. No resistance. Clutch all gone. So, and then most people on the fork, they might want to change it. They might not. 50% wearing out on those tabs that push this guy in and out. My biggest fear, these guys would break off. I don't think you can see it, but the wear on these, if you match both sides, especially on this one, it's lost over 30%. Lose a little more. I mean, because this bike, if it runs good and stuff, you know, that starter's not, you're not going to have to take this apart. Unless, you know, your clutch goes and stuff, but I think all this is pretty good. This guy breaks, bounce around in there, could be catastrophic. Could just cost you a lot of money. It's a $60 part, probably the most expensive. This is 25, 30 bucks. This guy was 35. This guy was 65 with shipping and taxes and stuff. I mean, what's your bike worth to you? We're already in it, already taking it apart. Might as well fix it. That's all I got now. I'll add to this, make a couple more clips. Have a great one. Bye. Alright, gonna put the primary case cover on. Go off some pins. A guide pin right here. Just want to make sure you get them into the right spots. You fit in the pins. Now it says to torque them down to 7, 8, or 9 foot-pounds. Well, my torque wrenches don't go down to 7, 8, 9 foot-pounds, 7, 8, or 9. So I'm going to use inch-pounds. So foot-pounds to inch-pounds, just like foots to inches, times 12. So I'm going to go, since it said 7, 8, I'm going to go 90 right in the middle, 90 inch-pounds, because 84 would be 7 foot-pounds, 7 times 12. So I'm going to go a little bit more and get in between the two and go 90 foot-pounds. I've already set the torque wrench. Handy little tool, Harbor Freight. This guy just loosened so I can get to here. You notice I had to take the back floorboard off to get all this working, plus with the exhaust. That's it. And if you notice, I went in the pattern, right? So you don't torque down one side and warp the other side out, start and work your way out, just like you do with any other primaries. The other thing, when you're done with your torque wrench, turn it back to 0 so you don't mess your spring up in your calibrations. Now, all I gotta do is put the fluids in it, put the cover back on, we'll be ready to go to start it up, start working on the carburetor and get that going. So that's what I'm going to do next. 44 fluid ounces of fluid. I just happen to use Rotelli Triple Protection 1540. Really good oil. It's what I put in the bikes, in the primary only. Newer bikes I use Mobil 1 in the engine. I use gear fluid in the tranny, and I use Rotelli in the primaries. It's all up to you what you use. It's just what I use, just the way I do it. Works for me. Bikes seem to last. Older bikes that have cork gaskets really don't like synthetics, so synthetics are just too slippery and ooze out of the gaskets, so I only use synthetics on the newer bikes that have the rubber gaskets. The older bikes, you know, some of them have cork gaskets. They really don't like synthetics. You put them in, they just bleed back out. So it's up to you for washing your bike. You're happy with it, that's fine. We're down here in Texas, so heat, these things overheat. So wherever I can use a synthetic in the engine, I use synthetic in the engine. Or, you know, if it's an older bike, yeah, well, no luck there. So that's it for this. I'll create a video on the carburetor when I get to it. If you guys have any questions, you'll be able to send it to me later. Have a great day. Bye.